And welcome back to Open Studio. So you guys get the kind of far back view of this now. And see what I mean? It's like we were talking about last week. It's it's really coming together. I mean, it comes together fast and it's kind of avalanche-y. So the next step today is all about kind of getting those darker details in, and we'll be using one of my favorite color mixes. So the new opaque colors, the new opaque black has a very warm cast to it. So it almost kind of replaced this color for me, but I still find I use it a lot. So it is named Blumber. Basically, it's black and burnt umber. You cannot order this. I just mix it up, but I thought it was funny that we kept calling it this, so I put a little label on it like it was a color. So this is what it is I wish I could give you the ratio, but it's burnt umber with a bunch of black in it. And it always changes for me. It's never really like a set color. It's just more on the black side than the umber side. All right, so same thing here. Like this is just an old little reducer bottle that I had, but it's the same deal. I've had this forever, and I just mix it up in this, and it's 100% paint. There's no reducer or 40-50 in it or anything. So that way, as I mix it up, I could just leave it in here, and it never changes. That's important because sometimes, let's see if I have a good example of it. Yeah, here's a, is that a good one? No, let me find a better example of it. I know I have one. Yeah, I know I can find one. Nope. Yep, this one will work. So this is a sky color that I used, and you can clearly see it separated. So this is the reducer on the top, and then the paint down below, and then there's probably 40-50 in here as well. And this is what happens when you add all that stuff in there. Plus, technically, it gets the clock ticking on it. I've have old bottles that have reducer in them that just seem to be okay too, but I know that Createx recommends that, or mentions that the paint kind of has a shelf life, a quicker shelf life when you add all the reducer into it. Let me see if I get the focusing right here. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay. So we're going to blumber it up. For this, I think I'm going to stick with the Micron C. We aren't in Micron B territory yet, which is a super fine detail. So, so now remember, even though this has the black in it, which sprays really well, the biggest component of it is umber, and umber does not spray well. So, as we were talking about last time, you get used to those colors, and I know that I'm going to have to add a little bit of spike to it. I'll have to add a little bit of 40-50 to it. So we're going to start with just only about 3 drops. Because again, the black sprays so well in the binder, and the black just will kind of help compensate for this. The other question is how transparent do I want it? And actually I do want it pretty transparent. So then I am going to add a little bit more of the reducer mix. So we'll go with another 6 or 7 drops. Let me grab a sheet of paper. I'll just grab one of the templates from this is one of the templates from the wheel. So if I spray this out for you, make sure it covers the painting so I don't get this on the painting. But if I spray this out for you, see how it starts out as kind of a, oh, you can't see it at all, Steve. Come on, man. Sorry. See how when I spray off the camera, you can't see it? Oh boy. All right. So when I start to spray this, see how it's like a kind of a, I don't know, like a dark brown. But what's nice about this color is as I build this up, the black starts to take over. And it becomes this just really warm black. So again, it's a really complex color that you can do a lot with, but it depends on how you spray it, and you'll see that as I get going. So sometimes when I leave it real transparent, it's going to have that brownish color to it, and then sometimes when I hit it in the like the frame or whatever in the bottom parts, it can get like as dark as I need it. So I'm going to start on the box up top, I think. Yeah. So what I'll do with a color, especially a color that maybe doesn't necessarily spray really fantastically to start, like the umber color, I'll usually kind of start in an area where I can make some mistakes on it. You know, if it, you know, it won't be critical if it doesn't spray right. And that way I can kind of get a test in and see how it does work before I move on to a critical area. Like I wouldn't immediately start around the letters because it's just a lot could go wrong there. I'll just start in an area that, you know, I know that that if something goes sideways, I can easily fix it. So this still feels like it's not really spraying that well. And I want it to spray that well. So I'm getting great coverage, which is nice, especially in these areas because they're so dark, but I'm not really getting a lot of smoothness here. So I'm going to add a little bit more 40-50, but I don't want to keep reducing it. So here's what happens. This is, again, it's 1 part 40-50 to 10 parts reducer. So obviously it's mostly reducer, right? So if I keep using this, I'm just going to keep adding more and more reducer. So what I do is I have different setups of this. Where's the one I'm looking for? There it is. This is 1 to 2. So this is 1 part 40-50 to only 2 parts reducer. So it's much thicker. And this is what I want. I'm okay with reducing it a little bit, but I really want a lot of 40-50 in there. I could put a drop of 40-50 in there, but 40-50 is so thick that I would have to add reducer to it. So this just kind of takes that mixing thing and makes it a lot easier because now the reducer and the 40-50 mix together. So I'm going to put about 3 drops of this in. Now I do have other mixes. Here's a 1 to 20, which I rarely ever use. I mixed it because I thought it would be a good idea, but it's basically reducer. It doesn't do much. But the other one I do use a lot, if say it was somewhere in between, this 1 to 5 mix is one I use a lot. So this is if I want to add, you know, a good amount of 40-50, but also have decent reduction as well. 1 to 5 works really well. 1 to 10 is my absolute go-to for any really hard, like really tight detail though. Just because it has mostly reducer in it, it really does a good job of thinning out the paint while still giving it that little spike of 40-50. So we'll see how this sprays. The good news is once I get it where I want it, I'll be able to use it throughout the whole painting and it'll work. See how this works. So again, pick another dark area like, you know, the front of the tank, just to see how it sprays. What I'm looking for is like immediate response. So I want, as soon as I start pulling back the trigger, I get paint, and that's determined by how thin it is. If it's a thin paint, it's going to come out immediately as soon as you start pulling the trigger. If it's a thicker paint, it's going to have some air, a lot of air to really help it pull off the needle. And I don't want that with this. It's okay with coverage. Like if I needed to paint like this area here on the sidecar, this dark area, I want coverage with that. So I don't care about really detail. I'll get the edges with a stencil or, you know, cut out or something. But when I'm doing fades, I want that to be instant paint. And I'd rather, like I said, I'd rather build it up slowly than, build it up really slowly than have to deal with any kind of blowout. So this part of the frame is almost totally blacked out. So I'll just try this paint here because it's a good spot. I can see how it sprays. If something happens, it's not a big deal. And it's spraying acceptably. Good. I can live with this. What I'm going to do now, and I wanted to invest in some of these, but these are cap plugs. The name of the company is Cap Plug, and they make this well, that's what they do. They make plugs, caps. So you can buy these. This one here fits directly onto the, this size, the 1/3 of an ounce cup. The only reason I haven't invested in them is I only found them in one spot, and that's directly from the company, and you have to buy 250 of them. And since I only use generally 3 airbrushes that have cups in them, buying 250 of them is not a great idea. But if I can find them separately, they're a fun thing to get. But the reason why I did that now, I should have mentioned that. So now that I've got the mix in there, I don't want it to evaporate as I'm working, and I'm going to be working with this color for a little bit. So I put the cap on it to just kind of minimize the air getting in there. All right, what's going on here? So let's check this out. Okay, yeah, this is super dark. This is almost invisible. So this is a great spot to really test that out. Because again, this area is pretty much going to be all dark. The other thing that happens with burnt umber and these thick rubbery colors is I'll get that instant paint response to start, but as I get tip dry, it gets more and more difficult. You have to pull the trigger back farther and farther to get any paint to come out. There's not much you can do with that. The only thing you can do is really maintain the tip of the needle. Clear that paint frequently and don't push it, essentially. You know, if it's not spraying, stop and clean out the brush and then keep going. Don't try to push it, because same thing, as I pull back the trigger farther and farther, that blockage that's in there is going to snap out and then it's going to spit paint everywhere. All right. I could start, since it's, man, maybe want to add a little bit more reducer though. Because I like it, but I think I want a little bit more control as I get into this finer area. So I'll do I'll try this here. This is that nice dent in the side. I think try that, but yeah, I think I'm going to reduce it a little bit more. Because again, I'm getting a little bit of a hesitation at the beginning of the paint stroke, while the air needs to be a certain pressure. Same thing here though. I'm going to go for the 1 to 5. I don't want to really over reduce this, so I'll add about 5 or 6 more drops of this. Mix that up with the paintbrush. So again, drop the paintbrush on the floor. That's okay. So I've mixed it with the paintbrush, but still that thicker paint is in the front of the brush here. So what I got to do is I got to kind of back flush that by carefully putting a paper towel on there and then slowly pulling the trigger back. Dear God, slowly. The reason why is if I pull the trigger back all the way, all the air from the brush blasts through the cup and you'll end up being covered in paint. There we go. Let's see how this one is. Again, just pick another spot that's got a bolt on it. What do I got going on there? Okay. Same thing. Pick a spot that, is not necessarily crucial. And yeah, that was much better. Okay, good. I'm happy with this. Now that I've got this color in there the way that I want it, I can start like moving into the, make sure you can see what's going on here. I can start moving into the tighter areas. It's got some blue in it too. All right, I'm gonna have to adjust that first. I'll use this for a second and I'll grab another brush and that blue's everywhere. Crap. There's this bluish color that's on the top of the fender here is also in the tank, and I don't have enough of it. So it's important that this happens now because the details are on top of that. So it's not a big deal. I'm going to grab some white. Now white, I've mentioned this before too, white and black, because they are the new opaque colors, don't need 40/50 in them. You can just reduce them. So I do a lot of white and black painting with the 543s. So I have mixtures already ready to go. This is 1 part paint to 5 parts reducer. And I don't use this version of it a lot. My go-to is just 1 to 1, which you can't even see anymore. So that's 1 part paint to 1 part reducer. I use that white a lot for those black and white paintings. 1 to 5, I use it for a lot of, like light tinting and things. It's really over reduced. Black, I generally have, I use 1 to 1, 1 to 5, and 1 to 10. So 1 part paint to, the appropriate reducers. And that's what I use for black and white painting. So you can do that with the opaque colors. Well, I can do it with the opaque colors only because I use them so frequently, and I don't mix a ton of them up. So I'll have, like, for instance, in this white, the 1 to 1, there's like I maybe will mix 1/3 of an ounce, and I'll use that within a week. So That way I can have them mixed up. And that just saves me from having to continuously mixing the same, you know, the same thing over and over again. All right, so what I did was I added a little bit of blue to that white. Now I've got a kind of a pale blue. So what I'm looking at is, again, just like I did with the orange, let's get this to spray a little bit. Just with the orange, oh, that was too much, yay. I'm just gonna kind of throw this in the areas that needed to be cooled off a little bit. What's nice is I've got the blue in here anyway. But if I just had white in here, it would still almost do the same thing because of all the warm colors that are on here. That's going to shift blue anyway. But I'm just kind of hitting it a little bit harder with that blue so I make sure I get that blue feel to it. Yeah, because it's all up in here too, that steel color. So I want to make sure I get that in here now, because as I go to put the details on, I don't want to then say, oh look, there's blue in there, and then I have to repaint it in and then repaint the details and blah blah blah. So yeah, all in here there's like this nice weird bluish bits and pieces. What else we got? Oh, the steel. Since I got it in here, I'll base these rods here. They'll need to be darker. Oh, too much. It's okay. That's already got the blue on it. That's good. That's good. That's enough on that. All right, and I'm gonna, well, I'll have to clean this out right away. I'll leave the paint in there in case I need it again, the blue. Okay, now back to it. I'm just gonna float some dark color in the bottom here, where the motor is. So I can make that transition. It looks like it just rolls right around on the tank to where you can't see it when it's really dark. So now I can start coming in here and working on that same texture that I started building up with the last color, that rusty color. I could start really like locking it in now with this color. Again, balancing the details with the shape that I'm trying to get. It's more important that I get that overall shape of those dents than the details that are in them. It's really the details that show those shapes because of the shading and shadowing that are going on there. But again, my primary thing is to keep the shape of, like for instance, of this dent. I really want to make sure that shape overall is right where it needs to be. The details are great and everything, but they're always going to be on top of the main forms. Yeah, this is lovely. And again, what's nice about this lumber color, as I'm spraying over this orange, if I go with a real transparent spray of this stuff over the orange, that's going to leave me with a really warm brown. If I do a really light spray over the blue part of it, as you'll see, that gives this lumber color a really cool color. It's a really dark, like a really like a bluish black kind of, which is really, really nice the way that it can kind of span both ends of the spectrum as far as the warmth and coolness of it. Again, this overall though, lumber does not want to spray very well, so I got to really, really keep track of this stuff. If it stops spraying, if it starts to become a little bit more difficult to spray, I got to make sure that I stop and clean off the needle. There is no way around it. There's, you know, I mean, I'd love to tell you there's some magic formula that makes every color spray great, but we're dealing with airbrushing. We're dealing with wet paint and air, a lot of air that wants to dry the paint as it's coming out, and it's physics. It's just, you know, you just got to deal with it. Which hopefully should make it a little bit more, I don't know, palatable for you if you're learning. To know that, you know, it's difficult for you, but you know that everyone else is kind of struggling with the same thing. It's not that you're missing something. It's just that's where your experience is gonna allow you to do the things you want to do with the tool. You know, you getting by the challenges that are just inherent in the tool. And of course, it's always the difficult part, you know, knowing, is it me or is it the tool that I'm working with or the paint that I'm working with? That's, you know, again, comes with experience. You know when it is you and when it's not you. And sometimes you still don't know. So there you go. And again, same thing as with the brown. Like I'll put some details in, then I'll lean back and kind of get a feel for the overall value of the area that I'm working on. So I want to keep pushing everything kind of the same speed. Details, then overall tone, then details again, then overall tone. And by kind of keeping track of those big shapes and the overall tones, you won't get this painting that's very flat and just a bunch of details kind of locked together. You'll be getting this whole complete kind of image, which is what we're looking for. Again, there are no points for having the most detailed painting if it doesn't stand up for everything else. Should put that cap back on so we don't get... It's going to evaporate even with the cap on it. It's going to separate even with the cap on it. So that's another great thing to do. If you find you're using one like this color, but you're using it for a long time, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. What I'll frequently do too along the way is I'll just, again, back flush this really gently. Well, it's easier to do with the cap off it so you can see what's going on. But so by back flushing this every once in a while you're working with it, it remixes the paint at the bottom of the cup and the stuff that's getting in the passageway in the front. It's just kind of keeping it all mixed up. Again, these cranky colors, you really got to make sure you do that. And then frequently I'll spray it off to the side too, to just kind of block or blast anything out that's kind of, again, building up in there. And you just keep ahead of it, you know, you just keep that airbrush clear and free, and you'll have a much easier time with it for sure. And then it does get to the point sometimes, like I said, if I'm working with the same color for an hour, you know, I got it in the cup for an hour, it's going to get to a point where there's air in the cup and it's reacting with the paint and it's doing what it's supposed to do and drying it. Excuse me. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to clean out this brush and just remix the same color and get fresh paint in there. It is what it is. All right, so I'm going to clean up, well, since I'm thinking of it and it's sitting right here. When I add a little bit of that orange color, I needed to fix the overspray, the darker areas behind it. So I'm going to do that right now too, since I'm thinking of it and I have the color in there. Take care of those springs once and for all. I'm glad I did that. Again, in the photo, the left-hand edge of those springs is really bright and clear. But when I did that on this painting, it made them look like they were just kind of stuck on there. By adding that slight bit of shadowing and oranging on the left-hand side of both of these springs really gives it that round feel. So even though it's not exactly what the photo is, it tells the story better for me. And again, I'll say it again and again and again. That's why this is different than a photograph. You know, the idea is you're taking it and you're enhancing certain things to tell the story a little bit better, while still keeping it accurate. You know, I don't want to go crazy and change a bunch of stuff. You certainly can. That's just going to give you a different style of painting. But for me, it's about telling that story. And again, the photograph doesn't necessarily tell you everything that was going on when you were standing there, and I certainly feel that. So by doing this and being able to kind of adjust the photograph, I can make it feel like you're really standing there. Yeah, it's a good color. This is a real good color. I'll be able to do a lot with it. There's actually some neat blue in there too. Ow, my finger hurts so bad. I've been doing a lot of painting. And I talk about in the very first Tech Tuesday that death grip thing. And I thought that it was a universal thing. I thought everyone does it, but look at my fingers, how red they are. I end up getting so focused that I'm like gripping this thing like I'm trying to bend it in half. And I've been airbrushing for a long time, and I do it. I still do this. I still do it all the time. So it takes a conscious effort for me to kind of like stop and relax my hand, and that's really the, you know, like I said, I talk about it in the death grip video. But for me, the number one thing to kind of fix that is to stop and just relax, just to stop and, you know, just chill out. And again, I know the details are tough, you know, and they take a lot of concentration, and you know, I'm really kind of wound up when I'm doing it, but you know, I gotta relax. So again, I thought it was interesting because I put up that post and I thought everyone would be like, yeah, I do that too, and like no one does it. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's just me, which is okay. Yeah, this is great. So these blue little specks, these blue highlights where the metal is kind of worn all the way down, and then, you know, whatever happened got rubbed and it's shiny or whatever, are things to put in now. Because again, as I kind of paint in all the dark around it, I don't want to go back in later and have to put them in, because they'll just sit on top, and I don't want them there. I want them to be kind of underneath everything. So, whoa, I almost dumped my brush. That would have been bad. I love these Visionaire holders. They protect me from doing something really stupid. So the Visionaire setup has these little airbrush holders that can attach to any of the rails on it. And that works out good for me, because I tend not to be too careful, unfortunately. So again, I'm about, I don't know, half an inch back, and just kind of like pumping the trigger and starting to get the main part of that rust texture in. This is nice because the spray pattern is still pretty tight, so I can get some pretty good detail. Like I don't, and I won't automatically just blast over all the blue I just put in. I kind of work around that, which is nice. That's kind of what we're looking for. Lovely. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Yeah, that dent is coming out good. I'm feeling it. Beautiful. So what we're going to do on the next episode, we're just, like I said, we're going to keep hammering on this tank and the areas above and that kind of thing, and just get this done. Same thing, you know, lean back a little bit. Now I'm about an inch back, so I've got a pretty decent size spray pattern, and I can just lightly go over this whole thing and start to push the whole thing back. So it would be nice to see this on time lapse, because then you could really see it. You could see the whole thing kind of, you know, darkening all together. And it might be fun to have all the footage of this. I could do a time lapse of it, which would be interesting. What would be really interesting is do a time lapse of the entire painting, because I have it literally from beginning to end. The only problem with that is this moves around a lot. Normally with a time lapse, I'll keep it still so that, you know, there's not that much movement, but I know I've moved this all around. All right. So anyway, thanks very much for joining me. Now you get your usual Please like and subscribe. That would be amazing. And thank you all again. For those who have hit the thanks button on this, I truly appreciate that, and I will catch up with all of you as soon as I get back. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of preloading all these videos all at once, so I'll be able to thank everyone properly when we get back to doing them when I get back to recording them every week. All right, there we go. So for Steve Leahy and Open Studio, thanks so much, and I will catch you guys next time.